Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Ryan, and just who the hell do I think I am making a video with this title? Well, by background, I've been working at RIAs since 2007, and for the first portion of my career, I worked at multi-billion-dollar RIAs serving ultra-high net worth individuals. But then in 2019, I started my own firm, Sinceris Advisory. We're based in New York City, and at the time of this video, we're a team of CFPs providing holistic financial planning to more than 150 households. If you want to know more about my entire long background, there's an episode of some podcast, The Advisor Success something or other, with this guy, Kitzes. You may have seen him around. So what's my why here? Well, the New Yorker in me says that you should always question everyone's motivation for doing something. So what am I really up to? Well, I honestly hope you find this content helpful, but I know at the very least I will be learning from it. You see, the best way to learn something is to teach it. And I think as you interact with clients more, you will find that explaining concepts, even simple ones to them, is the best way to reinforce your own understanding.
I teach you all you need to know, and then you go off and you make $1 million.
So when I got the CFP designation, it was back in 2010, and that was just a couple of years ago, right?
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
I remember learning a great deal about financial planning from that. But the majority of the time today, if you ask me how I know something, I will point to specific instances, or hundreds of them, from my time communicating concepts to clients. And so that's my real goal here, to show you that the majority of the financial planning information you will ever learn will come from your clients and not your study materials or even your continuing education. At least that's been my experience. But even with all the practical experience in the world, there's still always room for that one ugly constant. And that's probably my whole reason for making this video series. Imposter Syndrome. I think it's important to point out that there's an entire industry built around selling solutions to advisors in an effort to assuage their imposter syndrome. Going back to always questioning motivations, I think it's a worthwhile question to ask if a piece of software or a paid course is actually going to improve your client's experience. Or is it just offering you a quick pill to ease the pain that comes with the pressure from having people's financial future in your hands? So here are a few completely free things that I've found over the years, specifically as it relates to imposter syndrome. Number one, it's okay to be wrong. You are human and you're going to be wrong. I'm wrong about something on a regular basis, and frankly, I look forward to it. It's an opportunity for me to stay humble and a chance to learn. But going beyond this, it's okay to admit that you don't know something, even in front of a client. While we're always striving to improve our own financial planning knowledge, it's impossible for the human brain to retain everything. I know you just memorized every contribution limit and tax credit amount for your CFP exam, but here's the secret. Those numbers change almost every year. And so it's okay to not commit something to memory that you can just easily look up. I carry a cheat sheet of tax information around with me always, and that just shows what kind of dinosaur I am.
Yep.
Look, it took me a long time to feel comfortable saying in front of a client, I don't know that answer, but I'll get back to you. But the ability to do this produces better outcomes for everyone. Number two, and on the complete flip side of this, remember that as a CFP, you know more about financial planning than 99.9% of the population. Give yourself some credit. Just because a client's situation might not exactly look like a test question, you still possess the framework to answer. Admittedly, that means you might have to slow down and not take for granted how much the client knows about their own situation. But know yourself and know that you know how to problem solve. Personally, I find that talking through things is one of the ways I work best. And so here's a real world example of when I was recently faced with a very challenging client situation. A client of mine had a change in their employment status at the same time that they were in the midst of family planning. And so they lost the associated IVF benefit that they were really counting on. This left them facing a difficult decision about how they would fund what was a major life goal in the upcoming year. And it was obviously very emotional for them. The planner in me wanted to go run a Monte Carlo projection and show them how we could quantify the magnitude on their financial future. But that didn't even touch what they were actually experiencing emotionally. And so we sat down and had a conversation about how their years of savings behavior that they'd already done for retirement could now pivot and be tapped into to achieve the more pressing but equally important goal. I had to go back into my bag of tricks as a CFP to pull out what we used to call the magic wand question, just so we could suss out what the root of their current stress was. In talking about this stress, I had to admit just how little I knew about their situation and how scary it was to me too. And so that brings me to my next point, and something that I think is very important in this industry. Be yourself. There's a lot of focus out there on niching or specializing, and people are searching for opportunities to just really be themselves more. And I think that's great. We work in an industry of trust, and it's infinitely more possible for people to place their trust in you when they see how authentic you are. So if you're a huge anime fan and every time you talk about mega backdoor Roths, you think of Goku going Super Saiyan, don't be afraid to make that analogy. The caveat is to remember that every engagement is about the client, not you, so make sure you're relating to them somewhat. So as a final example to pull this all together, I'd like to use that one conversation that comes up in every meeting with a new prospective client. Our fees.
Here we go again.
This is probably the most obvious place for your imposter syndrome to pop up because suddenly it feels like they're saying to you, why should I pay you that much money? And it feels like you're justifying your entire existence. So let's put into practice what we've learned. First of all, be confident in your planning knowledge. You can explain to them all the work you've done to get to this very impressive point in your career. Just don't belabor it. And at the same time, you can also be human. It's okay to acknowledge that your services or your fees might not be for everyone because chances are they might not be. But the final hack here, and this goes a long way, is be transparent. However you're compensated, just tell them like it is. Again, we're in the trust business, and the biggest mistake you can make early in engagement is just expecting the client to trust you. Trust is something that must be earned. But by demonstrating that you're transparent, you're your authentic self, and that you're confident, you can go a long way to starting down that path to trust. Well, now I feel better, don't you?
Sure do.
So that's just the beginning of our framework, but I'd like to continue to walk through the entire financial planning process and specifically presenting plans to clients to show just how you can apply this philosophy. I'm always happy to share specific client examples that I've accumulated throughout the many years and how I've struggled personally many times communicating with clients. If that's something you're interested, please drop a comment below and just let me know the things you struggle with as a young CFP. Until next time, cheers.